The growing trend of parents funding their adult children. That's kind of an oxymoron thing to say, adult children. Is it an adult or is it a child? I mean, there's young adults, sure. Is that what they mean? This is by the Daily Digest. Turning to their parents for help. The young adults of today, millennials and centennials, who's that? Is that Gen Y? Or Gen Z, rather? I don't know. If someone can comment, I'd appreciate that. Are continuously facing financial struggles with student loan debts, poor spending habits, inflation, and low salaries. Many of them have turned to their parents for help. Nearly half of American parents help their adult children financially. Are they saying young adults? This is going to drive me crazy. Who wrote this? Doesn't say. Just the dailydigest.com. According to the report by savings.com, 47% of parents in the U.S. with a child older than 18 provide them with at least some financial support. Okay, it's not a child, it's an adult. God, the writer's ability to write, journalists write, is going to drive me crazy. Anyway, so half of adults, or young adults, rely on their parents for help, which is sad. There's so many things that can be blamed for this, right? It could be inflation, the cost of living, everything being so expensive, how parents coddle their kids, and when they become young adults, they have no idea of what to do when they grow up, how to handle money. Money, crazy enough, finances is not easy. We live in a spending economy. That's how this country moves. You constantly need to spend, and you need to be someone who thinks about how you should save and invest your money to get ahead. But no one thinks like that. Not very many people do. I feel like we're getting to the point where families from before, just a generation ago at least, where it was all about let's save our money into a college fund to provide for our kids, that when they turn 18 and they go to college, they have money so they don't have to worry about struggling. Well, guess what? A lot of that's just not working anymore. A college fund doesn't work anymore. A lot of these young adults still have to pull out student loans because the cost of college is so outrageous too. That's inflated like crazy. No one's really talking about that, unfortunately. And I think like my generation, who's going to have kids, if you just have a kid, maybe up to teenagers, you're thinking about providing a college fund. I think that college fund is going to be more focused about we need to have our children, when they become adults, to have a house. That should be priority over college. If they have a house, then we can talk about college. But right now, we need to make sure that we have money that we can afford a house for them. Otherwise, they're not living with us and they're going to be struggling financially forever. At least they have a roof over their head. They have a physical asset. That's my belief. But I think a lot of people are going to start thinking that the number one priority that they're going to save up for is going to be called a house fund, not a college fund. Parents give more to their adult kids than what they save for their retirement. On average, parents providing financial support give $1,384 to their children monthly. That's very precise, huh? $1,384. The report shows, which is more than twice the average contribution to their own retirement savings, which is $609 on average. Now that's a problem, because these young adults can't even save for their own retirement, let alone their parents have to help them out and use a lot of the funds from the retirement that they should be saving to retire are there to help their young kids. I mean, what do you say? Like, it's so frustrating because the number one problem here is money. Money is a big problem. Not a lot of jobs pay enough for people to just live comfortably anymore, to no longer depend on your parents. I used to be one of those people who would think, just develop a skill that's in demand and you'll make money. Like, there's truth to that to an extent, but there's a lot less skills in demand that makes a lot of money for you to afford a house now. So many employers want people with bachelor's and master's degrees and to pay them like half of like what you need to be able to afford a house, to be able to afford just a car. I'm not saying like anything fancy, just a car, use a few miles on it, a few years on it, a house, that requires a little bit of work, but it's affordable. It just doesn't exist. It's just so crazy. More than half of parents are sacrificing their own financial security. Moreover, 58% of parents surveyed said they were sacrificing their own financial security to help their adult children, or, their kids who happen to be adults now. So it's just this crazy circle that, like, our parents are not going to be able to retire comfortably anymore because they have to help out their kids. And we could say maybe it's financial irresponsibility. There could be truth to that. It's just a coincidence that it's becoming more and more prevalent now. That people thought that they were on top of their finances, but things got out of control. Things got way too expensive. That what they were saving, which was $609 a month, that doesn't cut it anymore. They were making the attempt to save money for retirement, $609 a month, and it doesn't cut it anymore. That used to be what you needed, right? That's a good chunk of money a month. I don't know, maybe I still live in the past where I think $609 is a lot of money, but apparently it's not in 2024. The most common cost parents help cover. Each situation is unique, but the most common costs that parents cover for their adult kids include groceries, rent, cell phones, and healthcare, the report shows. I mean, are they even working? But let's assume these young adults are working. They work for such low wages now. Remember when $20 an hour was awesome pay? It's not anymore. Remember, like $25, even $30 an hour is still like nothing. And it's frustrating. You finally got your bachelor's degree, and you go out and get a job, and first one is like $20, $25 an hour. Used to be great money back in the day, not so long ago. But now, you can't cover all your bills at once with it anymore. You can't cover your rent, you can't cover a car, you can't cover gas, you can't cover groceries anymore. And healthcare, cell phone, everything. Internet costs, utilities. So of course they're going to need help from their parents. And it's so unfortunate. Me in my late 30s, I unfortunately know some acquaintances who do need help with their finances. People in their late 30s who need their parents' help to pay bills. I don't have that luxury. I grew up poor. Parents can't pay for anything. And then I got out of that. Now I help my parents. But I'm not saying I live great or anything. But man, it requires a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice. 61% of adults living with their parents don't contribute to any expenses. The study also found that 61% of adult children living with their parents don't contribute to any household expenses, including rent. So it's either you're just spoiling your kids, who are young adults now, say, yeah, just live at home. What's the plan? What is the plan? Are they saving money? Is there a plan, or are they just deadbeats not working? Because I've heard two different stories before. I've heard of young adults who stayed at home until they were like 30, even mid-35, but they had a plan. They saved money, and they bought their own house, and they moved out of the house, and look, they had their own house. But that was far in between. Not too many. Most cases I've heard, they just weren't doing crap because they could just live off their parents, live off welfare, live off whatever, and not have to work because working sucks. A lot of them have the mentality of like, why am I going to work 40 hours a week and still not get by? Like, why would I put myself through all that stress, 40 hours a week, and more because, they're commute and whatnot, and get nowhere? I'd rather just stay at home, play video games, jerk off, whatever. And we're going to have a much more unmotivated generation because what's the point of putting in all this effort if the outcome, there's nothing? As soon as you get your paycheck, you have to pay for everything. And you're in debt. And you're in a deficit. Can't afford anything. And you're in a hole. Young people today have lower wages than their parents did. On one hand, young people today have lower wages than their parents did at their age. Since 1984, graduate salaries have decreased by 10.6% after considering inflation, according to a self-credit builder report. That's crazy. I have 2 masters. And according to this, I'm making 10.6% less if you account for inflation than 1984. In addition, that's very discouraging for people going to college saying, why am I picking up all this college debt? I'm going to have a hard time paying for that anyway, let alone trying to get a house. This goes back to me saying, like, a lot of families are going to think the money we're saving for a college fund, that might not be our priority now. It might be a house fund for our kids. College, if it's available, they better get good grades in middle school and high school so they have a free ride, or sports scholarship or something with a free ride. Really have to kick their butts, kick the kids' butt, keep them motivated to get a free ride to college. Otherwise, you might just have a house, but you might be house poor. Millennials and Gen Z have higher education levels than their parents. But on the other hand, compared to their parents, millennials and centennials are more likely to have a college degree, although the increasing levels of education don't seem to be enough to get a decent paying job. That's the problem. I think that's what it was, because, baby boomers and even Gen X, they had a college fund. The focus was to just save money and keep pushing and encouraging your kids to go to college. My parents did. I am grateful in a way. I do have a good job and whatnot, and yeah, I feel like I'm drowning sometimes. And my biggest expense is a house. A mortgage is not easy to cover month to month. It's not. And let alone try to save money for an emergency fund, because crap happens. Out of nowhere, $500 you have to spend on something. Out of nowhere, you have to pay $2,000 on something. Something broke. Car's down, something, right? Parents need help with something. Gotta help them. So yeah, it's very frustrating that we're more educated than our parents, but not living better. And this is what frustrates young people to hate the system much more. This is why they gravitate to conspiracy theories and socialism and communism and whatnot, because they think the system that they're in right now doesn't work. They're doing all the right things and they're still losing. They are still losing. They're not getting ahead. It's frustrating. A case of unemployed 29-year-old. A 60-year-old father who gives $2,000 a month to his 29-year-old unemployed son told The Guardian US his son has a degree in math and data analysis. It should be data analytics, right? However, his lack of work experience seems to be a problem. No, I disagree in a way. First, if you have a degree in data analytics and math, like, I can personally tell you there's a lot of jobs that will hire someone for that. And if you have no experience, I'm sure there's plenty of companies who's willing to hire you, but they're not going to give you the salary expectations you'd want right away. And that's how it should be. You have no experience. Okay, then you're worth, so little. Until you develop more experience, then yeah, you could demand more money. And the company you're currently working for is not going to give you a certain amount of money that you want. You can go somewhere else with that experience and make more money. That's how it works. Now, if it was a degree in like gender studies or something, like, okay, I get it. You're not going to get a job. But I personally know people who have degrees in math and data analytics, they're able to find a job. So there's something going on here. Me personally, that's what I believe. Lots of competition. With Silicon Valley nearby, which has had a lot of layoffs, his son is competing against many people with years of experience, the parent told The Guardian. Well, that's probably the problem. You're in the Silicon Valley area, I assume. Yes, lots of layoffs, lots of competition there. There's a good chance he might have to move. And I know there's people... Like, how can I say that? Like, you might have to go where you can get a job and experience. And maybe you come back. I know you want to be by your parents, and I get that too. Or maybe there's something you can do on your own side gig that turns into a part-time job, that turns into a full-time job. While you're looking, you should be developing your skills. Maybe providing a service for someone at a certain rate so you can finally get some experience. And maybe that can turn into something. There's opportunities here. It's the United States of America. If you can't figure it out here, you're not going to figure it out in anywhere else in the world or any other system. This economy is excluding a lot of qualified people. Perhaps my son is doing something wrong, but it's my impression that this economy is excluding a lot of qualified people, he added. No, there's truth to that. Like, people who are like overqualified. So if you were used to making like, say, $100,000 a year, and say you go through a layoff or something, You're looking for the next job and you're trying to get a job that pays similar, maybe a little bit more, but you're like well overqualified and they don't want to hire you because they think you're going to be a stepping stone to that company or something. I can see that happens. Or if you're just like, you haven't been working, you're just trying to get to whatever job, you're like, fine, I'll work for $80,000 a year at this job, but they don't want to hire you because they think you might be you're overqualified and you might be a stepping stone for that company. It's just a situation that just sucks in the U.S. Like, nothing's perfect, obviously. And it's just, just being a W-2 employee, just being an employee just sucks. That's why I always push like entrepreneurship, start your own side gig, do something. Stop depending on an employer, because employers fire you like that, kick you to the curb like that. Like, no problem. They replace you so easily. So I get the frustration. I understand the circle, because I've been there, honestly. Where you're just like, I need a job. How come I'm not getting hired? It takes freaking forever to finally get a job. Do millennials and Gen Z spend too much? Though many could relate to the experience of that father and son, there are also those young people who have a decent paying salary but ask for their parents' help as their spending habits do not match their salaries. Like, I could see that happening, right? And that's just the lack of education for finances. But at the same time, there's so much information about discipline and finance. You have the internet. It's in your hand. It's on your cell phone. If you make a certain amount of money, how do you pay yourself first? A certain amount of money has to go to savings because, crap happens, something breaks, you got to come up with money somehow. Emergency fund, put some money on the side to invest, some money on the side for rent, money, open up an Excel spreadsheet. Be like, this is how much I get paid every month. Break down, I need to pay rent, I need to pay utilities, this is how much it costs, this cost. This is what I'm left at the end of the month. Where am I going to allocate this money? Do I really need to buy Starbucks $6 a day? You can just make it yourself. Get a huge Costco bag of Starbucks coffee, and then you can make it at home for pennies. I mean, there's a lot of ways to cut on spending. There's a big one I know for millennials and Gen Z. They are not cooking. If you are a millennial and a Gen Z and you're cooking at home, great. Because you probably understand that it saves a lot of money. It's probably better food for you anyway. I also do know a lot of people who just live off just going out to restaurants and whatnot. And the same people who complain about how everything's expensive as we're out there at the restaurant where it's easily $35 a plate. There are ways. I mean, take a look. But maybe there's also millennials and Gen Z who are cooking at home and everything else. They're doing all the right things. They're not blowing their money and they're still struggling. I feel for them. I feel for those people. Parents who give extra money to their children because they can. Retired attorney Ellen, 68, from Minnesota, was among a number of people who said they were propping their adult children up financially because they had money they did not need to spend. Well, good job, because now you're making them depend on you. And what happens when you die and they can't depend on you anymore? Now they're going to be worthless. They're going to be scared. People need to know that when they're against the ropes, how to survive, how to make their own money, how to live appropriately. I don't have the luxury to live off my parents. I had to figure out a way of how do I make more money? There's no safety net. I think that's a problem. If you have a safety net, what motivation do you have to make more money? I'm in a position where I have to take care of my parents, not as much as I'd like to, but it's something. Some millennials earn a decent salary, but still take from their parents. But despite being comfortable, able to support his daughter financially, Allen told The Guardian he had concerns about whether he and his wife were doing the right thing, as their daughter and her parent were earning decent salaries of about $150,000 through $170,000 annually combined. Now that's combined income. In today's economy, if your combined income is $170,000 a year, it's still not that easy. Things are expensive, pulling together to rent, barely save money for an emergency fund. That's about $85,000 a year per person. It's not bad, but you can still struggle with $85,000 a year if you just got a house. If not, there's rents that go up, especially if you're trying to be in a better neighborhood where it's safer. I understand safety is important. People are willing to pay a little bit extra more to live in a safer neighborhood. But yeah, it's better than, 80,000, 70,000, 60,000 per person. I get it. But supporting your kids who are young adults, you got I hate to say it, but you gotta let them go and figure it out. They have to go through struggle. I know they're gonna come to you, complain, this and that. I didn't have the luxury to complain to my parents. I need help. And I think that's important because they need to figure it out. How badly do you want to eat? Life is not as simple as I need to ask for money. I could just ask my parents, boom, I got it. No, you have to how do I make money? And you have no other choice. If you want to eat, you have to go figure out and make that money. Bad spending and saving habits. I don't understand the spending and saving habits of the younger generation, he said. My daughter and her partner have well-paying jobs, but never seem to have any extra money. They're always going out for coffee, going out for dinner, splurging on this and that. Well, that's their problem. Stop helping them if they're doing that. If you see the problem, which you can clearly identify, you're part of the problem. Stop enabling it. Cut them off. Be like, what? Why am I giving you money if you're just out there splurging? Buying stupid expensive coffee from Starbucks. I'm trying to keep quiet because my wife is out there and she buys that coffee like crazy and it drives me crazy. Anyway, expensive dinner's not cheap anymore. Like I was saying, it's easily $35 a plate. Right? Plus tip. Anywhere you go. Any decent restaurant. I'm talking about just average restaurant. I'm not talking about a fancy restaurant. Just a decent restaurant. It's going to be easily $35 a plate. Not cheap. And you're just splurging. If you're a parent and you see your kids doing that, be like, I'm not helping you out anymore. Clearly you have the money to buy all this. You don't need my help anymore. Good luck. A lack of boundaries. For many parents, it is a joy to help their children at any age if they can do so. But according to the parents surveyed by savings.com, only about a third think their support will help their adult children transition to financial independence, mainly due to a lack of established boundaries. I question what the goal is. If the goal is to get them a house, which I think is the next evolution from college fund to house fund, sure. Or maybe it's the college fund to get them through college so they don't leave with debt. So whatever job they pick up, they can at least be able to save money. Sure. That's what I think about that. If I have kids, I'm probably going to do a house fund. Because I know that's going to be the hardest thing in their life is to save and get a house over the head. But I also want to make sure that they have financial responsibility, that they're not blowing money. How to turn $1 into $2. But if they turn $1 into $0 and come back asking me for more money, no. I like what Shaq says. He teaches his kids, the family's not rich. I'm rich. We are not rich. I'm rich. It's one of my favorite things that he says. So it's just like one of those things you have to teach your kids. Like, there's no safety net in life. Yeah, you might have parents. And you might be fortunate enough to have parents. Not everyone has parents. And not everyone who has parents that are rich that can help them out. But also a problem is, what if your parents die the next day? What are you going to do? You're not prepared. Because life was too easy. You were too comfortable. You never prepared yourself. If you're a young kid watching this and your parents pay for your apartment, pay for your car and things, guess what? They're probably not going to be around forever. You need to understand that one day they're not going to be around. What are you going to do? Are you able to be self-sufficient? That's what it comes down to. I understand there's challenges. Life is expensive. Everything's expensive. Plenty to complain about. I think my only problem is parents enabling this problem. If the kids have the ability to really progress and move up in life, you're just giving them bad behaviors financially. A situation that's happening in many countries. But whatever the reason for parents helping out their adult kids or even letting them live with them, and whatever their specific arrangements, the situation has become an international phenomenon. I guess so. Like maybe a lot of European countries. Because here in the US, like the culture is like, as soon as you're 18, you better be moving out of the house right away, especially for men. Especially for men. If you're not out of the house by 18, I hate to say it, but society makes you feel like a loser. I don't agree with that. But even when I was young, I felt the pressures that I need to move out of my parents' house because women, if you're trying to date, they will clearly make you feel like a loser. Oh, you still live with your parents? I'm not dating you. I'm going to date the guy who has his own place, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I know not all women are like that. I get it. I can already see the comments coming in, but society does make men feel like a loser if they still live with their parents. I think that stigma needs to change. Because internationally, a lot of countries, it's okay for the kids to stay at home. Even when they're adults, they stay in their house with their parents until they get married. It's very common for a lot of countries. I think that's okay here too. But again, when they're an adult, when they're young, they better have a plan. I think that discussion needs to happen. Like parents needs to constantly ask them, what's your plan? What's your plan? What's going on? What's an update? Ask about it like every 2 or 3 months. Who cares if you're annoying them? They live with you. Who cares? Be like, I will stop until you move out, but I want to know what the update is. What's the plan? In the UK, a lot more adults are living with their parents compared to 10 years ago. In the UK, at least 620,000 more grown-up children are now living with their parents than a decade ago, according to national statistics. Now, is that a problem? It could be. Maybe they have a plan and maybe they're trying to save for a house. Whatever the situation is. But again, I don't want this to be like a stigma, a negative connotation that, hey, young adults are still living with their parents. Like, okay, it could be for a good reason or a bad reason. I hope it's for a good reason. 35% of Canadian young adults live with their parents. Well, according to the most recent data from Statistics Canada, in 2021, so this is kind of old, 3 years old, 35.1% of Canadian young adults under the age of 34 lived with at least one of their parents. That number could be higher than 35.1% today, right? Because it's really hard to live on your own, be able to afford a lot of things, right? Be able to afford rent, be able to afford food, everything. So I don't think it's bad that young adults live with their parents. But again, I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, like a broken record, as long as there is a good plan. Unaffordable housing or a temporary situation. The reason that young Canadian adults gave for living with a parent were mainly unaffordable housing, while others say it's a temporary thing that will allow them to save enough money to make it on their own, according to a CBC article. I hope that's the plan, and I fully support it. I know housing is so unaffordable. It's crazy. And I think it's time that we just shift from pooling our resources for that one big purchase, which is normally the college fund. I think that needs to evolve into housing. Like we need it, like our kids, especially if you have a newborn and whatnot, and you're thinking about starting a college fund, I think it should be turned into a housing fund. Because I think having a roof over your head is probably going to take more precedence than a college degree that might be worthless. You saved up for 18 years. So your kid could go to a college for 4 years and the education they got is not helping. It's obsolete now. Probably because of AI or it's no longer needed or whatever. So many things shift, right? But save for the house. You have a roof over your head. Always appreciates in value. Why not? And if they really want to get a college degree, there's many options. Maybe with the college fund, a huge chunk of it was able to buy a house and you still have left over for college. Who knows? A challenge in today's economy, a mix of socioeconomic factors has created this situation. A challenge in today's economy. It's clear that governments have to come up with policies that will let young people afford housing and healthcare and old people to have a comfortable retirement without worrying about their children. I hate to say this, but I think government needs to stop getting involved in college. I think they were the problem. They had good intentions, but it led to hell. That is what the road to hell is paved with, good intentions. Oh, we'll give you a guaranteed loan to go to college. And colleges said, dude, we're going to get guaranteed money from the government? Oh, okay, since we're going to have a much bigger supply, let's increase the cost because we can. Tuition this year will be 10 grand. Government's like, okay, here's money. Damn, that was easy. Tuition next year will be 11,000. All right, no problem. Bam. And they're like, dude, let's keep pushing the envelope. Let's see how far we can get with it. Tuition this year will be $15,000. All right, boom. Like, what? And guess who has to pay? The student who, when they finally get, their college degree, they're in so much debt. And the wages have not really gone up. So yes, that is the one big thing I believe that needs to be cut off is government, not to come up with policies, but to get out of funding colleges. Get out. So maybe in the United States, with Donald Trump getting rid of the Department of Education, maybe they'll stop. And prices of college might go down. Who knows? There might be universities who shut down if that happens, though. If you go to a university now, they are 2-3 times bigger than what they used to be a decade ago. I went to Arizona State for my bachelor's, and then going there now, it is like grown twice the size. It is gigantic. They keep expanding. And why? Because they get all this money from students who are borrowing from the government, guaranteed loans. But if they were to stop getting that money, what's going to happen? That's the end of this article. Let me read some comments. Catherine Gibbhart commented, only in an emergency. When my son had a heart attack due to COVID, I had to pay his rent for a couple of months. He is back to work. He has very little of me and knows I will always be there for him. He also knows he has to work for a living and take care of his own. I raised him with the knowing that I won't be here all of his life, and needed, he'll be able to provide for himself and his family. That's how it should be. A little bit, temporary help is okay. I understand. Though my only problem is permanent help. Like, that's what families are. The family is there to help you, but they can't carry you. They'll help you wherever you can, but again, they can't carry you. They can't support you forever unless you had a crazy accident, you can't work, and you completely depend on your family. Yeah, I get that. But if you're able to earn, but there's something lacking, your family still has to help you, there's a problem that needs a solution there. Sola 2 cents says, perfectly fine for parents to support their adult kids if they can afford it, but not if it's dipping into the retirement savings. Jeez. I disagree with that, because then those adult kids are just still kids, and they still depend on your parents. If you're going to be an adult, you need to be independent from your parents. Yeah, you might need some help here and there, sure, but as long as it's not permanent. Werewolf New Moon comments, why is this even news? It's none of our business how they get money. Stop being nosy. You know what? It can become our business when their parents can't support them anymore, and they're out there in the world crying about how everything sucks, they can't afford anything anymore, yada, 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 and they choose not to work, and then now we have to pay for their welfare. That's when it becomes our business. So please learn to have your kids become independent. If they live in a comfortable life, like, I want to have my kids to grow up with what I didn't have, right? I grew up poor, struggled a lot, bothered me. And then now I'm doing much better, way better than my parents. But I also don't want my kids to feel too comfortable and start depending on me. There's a value in hard work. MS comments, Gen Z getting lower wages. They are not. If you factor in inflation, yes, they are getting low wages. Just because your parents were making $1.50 an hour and minimum wage is what, $7.25 an hour? Oh my gosh, it's so much more wages. Well, yeah, but if you factor in inflation, our younger generation is struggling more than what their parents had to go through. Anyway, that's it for this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. I do read them. And let me know what you think of this. This is an interesting topic, so I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Until next time, bye.